During my entire time growing up in my parents' home, we always had a dog. And they were the craziest of dogs. I remember one time looking outside, and our dog's Scooter was climbing up the chain link fence to get out of her cage. And it might have been the same dog, or it might have been our other dog, Pinky. She had pink toenails when we adopted her. Someone had decided to paint her toenails pink. And one day my brother caught her with a $5 bill just hanging out of her mouth. And then we have another dog, and if you have dogs at home too, you know how much they like to beg, right? They just look at you, and they just look at you and they stare. And they just stare as you're eating your ice cream, you're cutting into your steak, eating your pasta, and they just look like this at you. And their tongue is hanging out like this. Just praying and begging that you'll give them something. And of course, at least for me in my household, with my parents, those dogs are very well treated and they get snacks all the time. So they'll get all sorts of scraps. Now, the reason why we're talking about dogs, though, today is that if you were listening to the gospel, we have this imagery of dogs. And Jesus even uses this phrase is that, the dogs, the children must need the food before the dogs eat the food or need the food. And then you have this woman who's wanting to be healed, her daughter to be healed, is saying, well, even the dogs eat the scraps that the children leave behind. Well, who are these children that we're talking about, and who are these dogs that we're talking about? All right? We have to remember that when we talk about children, Jesus is talking about the children of Israel, the Jewish people of that time. All right? And that's whom Jesus primarily came to serve first. Now, the message was to go out to Israel first because they were the ones who received the message of the Messiah. But it would later become known that his message is much larger than just Jerusalem or just a small group of people, that this message is to go out to the entire world, to the Gentiles. And the Gentiles for the Jewish people were looked upon as dogs. So in this situation here, when Jesus is using the term dogs, and the woman is using the term dogs, it's for kind of like a lowly state, a very humble state. It's kind of a derogatory in a way to call somebody a dog, all right? So the use of the terms there. And typically when we read this passage, we look at that woman's persistence in asking Christ. She wants her daughter to be healed. And if we read, we see a similar story in Matthew. She has to ask Jesus 4 times for this. One of the times the disciples tell her to go away because she's a Gentile, not deserving of Christ. But she keeps persisting. And I think that's what we have to remember in our own prayer, is to keep persisting in our prayer, that God will give us the things that we need in due time if we continue to be persistent. And that's what we can learn from this woman today. Now, an interesting thing with all of these gospel passages is that we can also read them from a different perspective. We can put ourselves as Jesus. And if you hear the story, Jesus is looking for a place of seclusion, a place to rest, a place to be quiet. And maybe that's in your own bedroom. Sometimes you get home after a long school day and you're just exhausted and you just want to hide out. Maybe you had a long day of gym practice, of a particular sport. You just want to hang out in your room and no one bother you. And then all of a sudden your mom's at the door, knock, knock, knock. Can you take the trash out? You're like, no. Kind of way Jesus was like this today. He was just tired. And we all get tired, right? And yet this woman's persistence moved something in him, and he wanted to help her, all right? Even though she was very annoying. And so we can think of ourselves as how we can be like Jesus in our own lives, and we can think of just those people that sometimes get under our skin, that sometimes annoy us, sometimes bother us, and we'd rather not do anything for them. But we can take the time and be like Jesus and offer the gift of our own time to them. So there's two things that we can learn from this. Is one, persistence in our own prayer life. And two, to offer ourselves to others, to be of service to others, to help those around us.
Hello, OLPH. My name is Mary Lynn Januszewski, and I'm the Director of Finance and Operations at Our Lady of Perpetual Help Parish in Glenview, Illinois. And this message comes to you with heartfelt gratitude and thanks for your ongoing generosity and support of OLPH Parish. This overwhelming generosity allows us to continue to serve and to minister to the parish community in so many different ways. So thank you, OLPH, for all you do. You are much appreciated.